Hello, I'm just setting the live video up a couple of minutes in advance so everyone can join, ready for us to start doing it at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock on the dot. So join in, feel free to give me a wave, say hi, let me know that you're here. And whilst we're waiting for everyone to join, I thought it'd be nice to look at these tulips. So if you go right in the middle, you can even see the black pollen that has fallen off onto the petals. And we'll just have a quick look at this. We've got 66 people joined at the moment, and then at 10 o'clock we'll start the session, okay? So don't worry if you can't hear me talking for a bit. You're going to have more than enough of that in a little while. Oh, fantastic. I'm really pleased. We've got some people here already. Hello, Bethan. Hello, Katie. Hello, Stanley. Hello, Eloise and George. It's great to have people here. Let's see if we've got anyone else. Megan's here as well. That's brilliant. So we're just waiting one more minute, I think, before we'll start. And then we've got everyone's had the chance to join on. People can join at any point throughout, and we're hoping to keep it up for 24 hours afterwards. This is my very first Facebook live stream, so I don't entirely know how we're going to do that, but I'm sure I can find a young person who'll be able to tell me. And I'm just going to go back in for those people who came later, because it's really nice being able to see the inside of this tulip and being able to see all the pollen on the anthers and some of the black pollen that has fallen onto the petals. So I just thought some people might like to have a look whilst we're waiting. Right. How are we doing for time? Iver Environment Centre. We are closed at the moment, so please don't come and visit us. However, we are going to try and bring Iver Environment Centre to you, the outdoors, indoors, through... Sorry about that. It seems that Facebook is quite heavily loaded at the moment, and so it may be some brief breaks in the lesson, but it will continue. As I was saying, the Facebook Live event is brought to you by, is supported by the Heritage Lottery Fund as part of the Colne Valley Landscape Partnership, because Iver Environment Centre is situated right in the middle of the Colne Valley Regional Park. Okay, so we're going to be talking about plants today, the different parts of the plant. So I'm going to start by showing you a plant. Let me check that I can turn this back round. There we go, a lovely plant. So this is a daffodil. If you want to know exactly what daffodil it is, what type of daffodil, I would recommend the site by Mick Crawley, which is whattypeofdaffodils.co.uk, I think it is. Some people are having difficulty finding the live stream. Emily, if you're watching this, can you reply on the main Facebook page if they haven't joined the event itself, please? I just want to say hello to Ella, hello to Ellis, hello to Addison, to Max, to all sorts of people who are joining us today. I'm looking at this plant, but there is a bit of the plant, a part of the plant that I can't see. Can anyone type in and tell me which part we can't see? There's going to be a bit of a pause whilst hopefully you're all busy typing. So I can see most of the plant, but there's a bit that I can't see. So the bit I can't see is under the ground. It's the roots, and they're right down there. And in fact, I've got some roots here to look at. So if you look at it closely, you'll notice that there's a bit in the middle there's a bit thicker than the rest, and that's called the taproot, and then all of the other roots spread out in lots of different directions under the ground. Can anyone tell me what the job of the roots are? So tell me what they do, how they help the plant to grow. So just type, and I should be able to see it at the bottom of the page. I think there's a bit of a lag. Facebook's being quite slow at the moment. Does anyone know what the roots do to help the plant? So the roots have got two jobs. The first job is to take in, to absorb any water and nutrients that the plant needs. And then the other the job of the roots is to keep the plant anchored, keep it underground, so that when the wind blows, it won't fly away in the wind. So the roots absorb water and some nutrients, perhaps from the soil. What else do plants need to grow? Hang on, I can't seem to see any responses now. So plants need sunlight, and they need water, and they need air, and they get them through the different parts of their plant. So we've looked at the roots, where they get the water. We're now going to look at this part of the plant here. Who can tell me what this part of the plant is called? Emily, if you're watching this, you've just sent me a message. Can you go onto the main Facebook page to tell people that they need to go into the event to see it? Because I'm getting a few messages that people aren't able to see it. Apologies to everyone, because this, as I said, this is our first ever Facebook Live, so it's not completely smooth. But anyway, here's the stem. The stem's job is to hold the plant up nice and tall. Can you sit up nice and tall like a plant with a stem? So, for example, if you didn't have a stem, you'd be all floppy down on the floor. Can you show me that, please, at home? Excellent. It also helps carry stuff from the roots to the rest of the plant. Now, what's these parts of the plant called? What are these? Oh, hang on. They are the leaves. Well done. And the leaves have a very important but quite a tricky job. I'll be impressed if any of the young people younger students among you are able to find it. Some of you who are a little bit older should hopefully know this. The leaves' job is to absorb the sunshine. They absorb the sunshine and they turn it into food. So you never see one of these daffodils chasing after cows trying to eat them. They make their own food inside their leaves. So they make them inside their leaves. I've got people saying we're not live on the main site, Emily. Can you please direct them over to this? So they use their leaves to absorb the sunlight, and then they turn it into food inside their body. And then the last part of the plant is this, the flower. Now, we're not going to be talking about flowers much today, because flowers are so big and so important that we're going to have an entire Facebook Live session on them next week or the week after. So we're not going to be concentrating on flowers much today, but they are a very important part of the plant. Now, so all flowering plants will have these parts of the plants, and that isn't just the ones that you might draw, like if you're asked to draw a flower, but even things like big trees. So they will have the roots under the ground going a little bit further than the crown is. They also have the stem, also known as the trunk in these. And then if you follow the stem, you can see that we've got, well, no leaves yet, but we do have some flowers, and we call flowers on trees blossom. We've got lots of blossom here, and these are fruit trees in our orchard. So when these fruit trees have turned into have been visited and pollinated, the leaves will drop off and just behind the flower there, the fruit will start to grow. I've got an example here of a daffodil. This flower looks like it's dead. It's not. It's just done its job. It's been visited by a pollinator, and now the petals can drop off, and this bit will get bigger. Again, we'll talk about this more when we do our flower session. So, the plants have all the tame parts, but they look different on different plants. So the leaves on these daffodils look very different to these leaves here, or to these leaves here. And the stem on the daffodil looks very different to that woody stem we have on a tree. And these differences help the plants to adapt to their habitats, to help make them more successful in the way that they live. And us humans take advantage of that, and we use some of these different parts for our own use. So follow me, and I'm going to show you some that we use. This is our allotment. In the summer, this would be very full, with lots of different things growing in all the different beds. At the moment, we don't have a huge amount, but I do have some I'm going to show you. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a pen and paper challenge. So, what I'd like you to do is, I'll go back into the shade a bit because it's a bit bright at the moment. But what I'd like you to do is get your pen and paper and write the numbers 1 to 5 down the side of your piece of paper. Because what we're going to do is we're going to have a quick quiz. Can I see? Nope, I can't see the comments there. So I'm going to hold up a piece of fruit or veg, and I want you to tell me what part of the plant it has come from. So I'm going to start with this one. What is it, and what part of the plant is it? I'll turn it round so you can all see it. There you go. That is number 1. Okay? Number 2, I've got 2 of them because it's number 2, and they're quite small, so I've put them in a little pot. Okay? So what is this, and what part of the plant does it come from? What part of the plant are we eating? 2. Number 3 is this. What is this, and what part of the plant do we eat? Now there's possibly okay, I lost you for a second there, but yeah, there's 2 parts of the plant for this bit. It's number 3. Okay, and then number 4 is this. Quite a small example. They can get much bigger. I really like these. These are one of my favourite foods. Number 4, what is it? What part of the plant is it? And then number 5, finally, what's this, and what part of the plant is it? And this is something we like eating a lot of at Christmas time. Some people don't like them at all. But I love them. I think they taste really good. Okay, so we've got numbers 1 to 5. Hopefully you've got something written down for each of them. So I'm going to go through the answers now. Number 1, this is an apple. Well done. And this is the part that you eat is the fruit. So it's a bit that has grown around the seeds. Now I'm just going to cut it in half so that I can show you the seeds in it. I'm going to put you down for a second so that I can cut this safely. So I've cut this open and you can't really see the seeds in it, but you can see where the seeds would be. And so that's something that you can investigate at home, hopefully, if you have an apple. I'm sure all of you had an apple at some point, and you can find the seeds. And it's this bit around it, the fruit encasing the seeds, that we eat. So number 1 was an apple, and it was fruit. Number 2, I'm going to get these out actually so you can hopefully see them even better. These are peas. Now these peas, you find them in a pod, but the bit we eat, the peas in the middle, are the seeds of the plant. So they're the seeds of the plant. So in the apple we eat the fruit around the seeds, here we eat the seeds themselves. Number 3 was broccoli, wasn't it? Yeah, it's broccoli. Now this is quite interesting. So I eat the stem. I really like the stem, but a lot of people don't like the stem. They only eat the florets. Now the florets are actually teeny tiny flower buds that haven't opened yet. And if you leave your flower buds, your broccoli too long, these flower buds will turn into flowers. And if you don't pick them off the plant. Now this broccoli is green. I generally eat green broccoli, but you can have it in lots of different colours. And growing here, we've actually got some purple broccoli. And you can see, when you go nice and close, you can see the flower buds there. And if we don't pick this purple broccoli, they will keep on going and they will flower and they will turn to seed. And there'll be no use for eating then. So that was number 3. Broccoli, we eat the stems and the flowers. Actually, before we go on to number 4, I'm going to talk a little bit more about how plants change colour. So we've got purple broccoli, and we have selected for different colours. If you grow tomatoes, you might grow different coloured tomatoes, some red ones, some yellow ones. And this is a good example of how people have chosen different colours. So the original carrots were white, they were purple, you might get some yellow ones. And the bit we eat, the carrot, this bit would be much, much longer, the leaves above the ground. And the bit we eat is the taproot, the big root that goes along the middle. And if you look closely, you can see some of the smaller roots coming off the side of this. And you can see some more at the bottom there coming off of it. So what happened was someone grew an orange carrot. Orange was a very fashionable colour at the time because of the Dutch kings and things like that. And all of a sudden, everyone wanted to eat orange carrots. And so the white ones, the purple ones, the yellow ones, they all got forgotten. And now we generally eat orange carrots. But you can grow other types. So I got a bit distracted there. So number 4 was this, wasn't it? It was a potato. And the potato, lots of people think they're the root because we call them, they're in the group that we call root vegetables. But the potatoes actually are tubers that come from the stem of the plant. So the stem of the plant is the potato. And if you're growing potatoes, depending on how you're growing them, you might build up the soil so that the potatoes carry on being covered so they don't discolour by having too much sunshine. And then our final one was the lovely Brussels sprout. So this Brussels sprout is a leaf bud. So the broccoli with flower buds that hadn't quite opened, and these are little leaves going along the side of a plant where the leaves haven't opened up yet, and that's what we're eating, the young leaves. Now, interestingly enough, this broccoli and this Brussels sprout are actually the same plant. So they both come from a plant of other vegetables that we eat that come from this plant. And if you want to, you can maybe try whilst you're at home over the next week before the next session. So well done if you got any of them right. Can you give me a smiley face if you got any of the questions right? Oh, fantastic, well done. And can you give me a face with a heart face or some hearts, whatever it is? I'm not down on the terminology. If you manage to get 3 or more right, can I see some hearts, please? So just click it on your screen. I think I should be able to. Have I seen that? Nope. There we go. Lovely. Well done, you guys. They were really tricky. You did really well. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a think about how plants in general are adapted. So those ones we've chosen, we've selected the adaptations, but nature selects for features because they're more successful. So if you look at our pond, don't look at it too closely because we do need to have a new pond. If anyone's a funder here, hopefully we'll get a new pond this year if we can raise the money for it. But anyway, all the plants that grow in the water have plenty of water, so they don't need some of the features that plants that grow on land do. And I've got a couple of these plants over here. Now you might recognise this as duckweed. It comes and you see it in lots and lots of ponds, and if you look closely at it, you'll see that it doesn't have much of a root. Can you see those tiny roots coming off of each of the plants? And that's all they need because they're absolutely surrounded by water. They don't need to stretch out their roots very far to find water. You also might spot this leaf. Now, if I put this leaf right at the bottom of the water, have a look at what happens. Can you see how it's floating back up to the top? And that's because inside its leaves, it's got air spaces that helps things move about inside the leaf, and it also helps it to float on the water. And that's why things like lily pads float on the water, because the air spaces make the leaves come right back up to the surface. So those are really useful for places where there's lots of water. But of course there's places where there isn't much water, like deserts. And so you find other adaptations that are more important. So these ones would be focusing on not losing any water and keeping hold of the water they've got. So instead of having short roots like these guys, plants that you find in the desert would have really long roots, ones that stretch out so that they can get as much water as possible on the rare occasions that it does rain. They also, if you look at it, will have quite thick stems. Now, can you see in the middle, you've got the stems, they're green to absorb the sunshine to make food, and they're quite thick, and that's so that they can store water in them. Now sorry, you're going to have to look at me again for a second because I want to show you something. Because you might have noticed that the shape of that stem was concertina shape. And that's something that you just take for granted, but actually helps the plant. So if you look at the shape, you'll notice that when it starts to fill up with water, it gets wider and wider and wider, like that. And it means that it doesn't explode, it doesn't burst, and then when it uses up the water, it can just shrink back down a bit and it doesn't damage the plant at all. And so that's why they have that concertina shape on their stems. You also might want to look at the leaves. Now sometimes the leaves in succulents like aloe vera are thick to store water in the leaves as well, but here they're not. They're teeny, teeny, tiny. I'm not going to touch them because they would hurt me. Why do you think the leaves are that sort of shape? They're very different to the flat leaves that we were looking at in the orchard earlier. So yeah, if you've been spending lots of time storing all that water in your stem, the last thing you want is something coming along and eating it. And so you make sure you have these spiky, rolled up leaves that don't lose water through little holes in the leaves, that are rolled up nice and sharp so that no one wants to take a mouthful out of you. And that is typical of plants that have had trouble getting hold of water and keeping hold of water. Now I'm going to take you somewhere to find some plants that do not have trouble getting hold of water. There's plenty of water where we're going to go. They do not have trouble keeping hold of that water. In fact, they sometimes have too much water and it could gather on the leaves. So if you come with me, we go through along the path here at Iver Environment Centre. You can hear some of the birds singing. And I'm going to take you to our rainforest. It doesn't look very special from outside, but inside it's lovely. Now, bet you never thought you were going to come to a rainforest today when I said we would bring the outside in. So the first thing I'm going to show you is this banana plant. So this banana plant's a really good example of how we've bred fruits to... So wild bananas, the bananas have are full of seeds. You wouldn't want to eat them. And then we've bred them to make the nice yummy bananas that we enjoy eating. Now if you look at the banana, you'll notice that it's got quite a waxy surface to it. And that's so that any water that's on the plant, and this one has too, quite a waxy surface, will just run off. And they've got these little things, little points called drip tips, where the water will drip off from. So if I show you, if I spray some water, hang on, let me sort this out. There we go. Sorry guys about that. So can you see how I'm spraying lots of water on it, but it's not staying on the leaf, so where it can make the leaf get all sorts of fungal diseases and things like that. It's dripping straight off of the drip tip. And that happens on lots of different plants here. You can see this one's got quite a nice drip tip too. So there's plenty of water down here, but what you might have noticed is there's not as much light as there is outside. And so the plants here are adapted to try get as much of light as possible. So some of them are quite dark green, because the darker the green, the better at absorbing the sunlight. And some of them are really big. And again, you can see they've got that thick waxy leaf there as well. They're really big to absorb as much as they can. We've also got our fish here. We'll come and feed them in a bit. So you can see how rainforest plants are also well adapted to their environment. I'm going to go back outside again because it's quite humid in there. And I'm going to tell you about our challenge. So in time for our next session, what we'd like you to do, I'm going to turn the... You still here? Sorry about that. So what we're going to do, your challenge is to work as a family or work individually, it's up to you, but I'd like you to design your own plant. So the only rule we have is that your plant must have all of the parts that we mentioned today. They must have roots, it must have a stem, it must have leaves, and it must have a flower. We don't have to worry about what's inside the flower today. And you can design your plant, you can give it a name. Perhaps you might want to look into some of the scientific ways of naming plants and come up with a Latin version of your own name to call your plant after. And if you want, you can think of a habitat that your plant lives in. So for example, you might want to design a water plant, or you might want to design a rainforest plant or a desert plant, or you might want to use another adaptation that you know about. Some plants have hairs on their leaves. Why might they have that? Perhaps you can put that into your design, your plant that you design. And then when you've done it, if you can post it either to this page or on whatever social media you do. Take a picture of your plant and use these hashtags, and we will have a look and we will give shout outs to the very best ones that we see before our session on Thursday. So on Thursday we're doing another one. It's about water nymphs and larvae, water larvae. So please join us again. Join us here. We might see if we can work out a way of broadcasting it on the main Facebook page, because I think a lot of people were there and couldn't find us here. But we'll definitely be broadcasting at 11 o'clock on Thursday about water nymphs and larvae, and we'll find out how you guys have done in designing your own plant. You know, you could even, if you're lucky enough to have a garden, you could go out into the garden and you can pick things from the ground to use to make a collage of your plant. That could be quite cool. Anyway, it's up to you. Crayons, felt tip pens, paint, anything you want. Just pencil would be fine. Just let's have a plant with all of the parts that we spoke about today. Until next time, bye bye!